Hi, Dr. Goldman.
Hi.
Never met, but I represent Dr. Vick. My name is Daniel Moriarty.
Okay.
Dr. Goldman, you understand that Dr. Vick is an ENT,
I do.
and that's ear, nose, throat doctor,
Yes.
and you personally are a pulmonologist.
Correct.
So you're obviously not an ENT.
Correct.
And you testified on direct that the boards that physicians take in their specialty are how you demonstrate competency. Do you agree with that?
That's one of the ways. Correct. Yes.
But that's what you testified to in direct, right?
Of course. Yes.
And you know that Dr. Vick is board certified ENT,
I
right?
presume so. Correct.
And you're not a board certified ENT.
I am not.
You've taken boards in other specialties, right?
Yes, I am.
But not in ear, nose, throat specialty.
Correct.
You don't perform tracheostomies, right?
Well, I do perform percutaneous tracheostomy.
Well, you remember Miss Curl explaining the difference between a percutaneous tracheostomy
Right.
and a regular tracheostomy.
Well, they're both tracheostomy. They're just two different techniques. I don't perform the technique where I make an incision in the neck and do that kind of tracheostomy.
So to repeat my question, you don't perform regular tracheostomies.
That's correct.
And if you need a regular tracheostomy done in your practice, you call someone who's qualified to do so, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you and Dr. Vick were working in the same hospital and you needed a tracheostomy done, you'd call someone like Dr. Vick, right?
Or some other qualified person, yes.
Now, the jury understands that you're a pulmonologist and you're choosing to testify against an ENT.
Correct.
We've established that.
Right.
And this isn't the first time you've testified against other specialties, right?
I don't really recall. I don't know.
Well, you've
Maybe
testified
not.
against a hospitalist. You remember that?
Well, that's not a different specialty. That's part of internal medicine.
You're not a board-certified hospitalist.
Well, there is no boards of hospitalists. So a hospitalist is internal medicine. I
You're
am
not board-certified in internal medicine, or are you?
Of course I am. I chaired the Department of Internal Medicine for 20 years.
You're not a board-certified infectious disease specialist, though.
No, I supervise them. Correct.
Okay? And you've testified against infectious disease specialists.
I don't recall that. Who?
You want me to
Sure.
refresh your recollection?
Yes, because I don't recall. Maybe I have. I don't recall.
Do you remember giving a deposition in 2004 against a physician out of DeKalb County, Georgia?
I don't recall. It's 12 years ago.
And just to refresh jury's memory, when you give a deposition, you swear to tell the truth, right?
Sure.
And I just ask you if you testified against an infectious disease.
I don't recall.
You don't recall. So I'm just
No,
going
it's
to
12 years ago.
just refreshing your memory.
Okay.
And if you go to page 181,
Okay.
first of all, look at the cover. I want to make sure this is your deposition.
Yes, it is.
And you remember doing this in December 2004?
No.
Do you doubt it's your deposition?
No, I don't doubt it. I don't remember it in 12 years ago. Yeah.
And the attorney in that case asked you on line 13, in this case you are rendering standard of care opinions against a hospitalist, a pulmonologist.
I got it. Okay, go ahead. Right.
Apologize.
Right.
What line? Line 13.
Yeah, I have.
You got it?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I have my answer. They're all internal medicine, yes.
But let me read the question first.
Sure.
In this case, you are rendering standard of care opinions against a hospitalist, a pulmonologist, and infectious disease physician. Am I right?
Correct. They're all internal medicine, yes. That was my answer.
Do you now remember giving standard of care testimony against an infectious disease specialist?
I do hear that they're all internal medicine, yes.
So you do remember now?
Sure.
You've
I don't remember the details from 12 years ago.
You've also testified against a gastroenterologist.
Well, let me put it this way. I chair the Department of Internal Medicine. The Department of Internal Medicine includes gastroenterology, hematology, oncology, cardiovascular disease, infectious disease, hospitalists, rheumatology, etc. I chaired and supervised those specialties, which are all internal medicine, for 20 years. So yes, I'm quite qualified I was required constantly to supervise their quality or provision of care, etc. So yes, I feel quite qualified to do that.
So just to redirect you really quick to my question, you have testified against gastroenterologists.
As part of internal medicine, sure.
Okay. And they take a separate board.
First they take internal medicine boards, then they take a separate board.
And they take a specialty board, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've never taken that board.
I have not.
And you told the jury during direct that a board is one way that you determine competency in that specialty.
That's one way, correct.
You've also testified against cardiologists, right?
That's one way, correct.
There's a separate cardiology board.
That's correct.
All of those specialties, infectious disease doctors, cardiologists, gastroenterologists, they are all trained differently through their residencies. Isn't that correct?
They're all trained additionally to internal medicine. As I said, I happen to supervise all of those for 20 years.
Training that you didn't receive, right?
Not beyond internal medicine, correct, or critical care. It would depend on the aspect. If it's critical care oriented, a lot of gastroenterology or infectious disease or cardiology is critical care oriented. So it'd be the same. It'd be similar.
Now, is it your testimony that you will only provide testimony against a doctor who's in a critical care specialty or an internal medicine specialty?
In general, as far as the standard of care, if you will, sure.
Right. But you've testified against a plastic surgeon.
I don't think as far as a standard of care I would. No.
I remember giving a deposition in Florida in 2001, January 2nd, 2001.
No. Okay.
Can you first confirm that that is your deposition?
Yes.
Okay. Could you go to page 13?
13.
Tell me when you're there.
Okay, I'm there.
Okay, at line 5, the attorney asked you, what opinions do you have regarding the standard of care of a plastic surgeon related to medical clearance? And you said, well, I think it would depend on what questions I'm asked in regards to that.
Right.
And the attorney says, okay. And he says, strike that, meaning let me ask you a proper question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the standard of care as it relates to a plastic surgeon in March of 1997 require surgical clearance for patients who are going to undergo liposuction and abdominoplasty, right?
Okay.
And you said, you mean other than by the plastic surgeon?
That's correct. Right.
And you said, not necessarily. No.
Sure. I'm talking about surgical clearance, not talking about the care of a plastic surgeon. I'm
You're
talking about the issue of surgical clearance for a patient medically safe to undergo surgery.
And you know the issue in that case was whether that plastic surgeon should have given surgical clearance.
Whether a patient is medically fit to have surgery, I feel more than confident that I can give that opinion in any field.
You said on a witness stand or in a deposition table where a doctor was sitting across from you who was a plastic surgeon, and you accused that person of acting negligently.
If the issue is medical clearance for a surgical procedure, that does not require me to be a plastic surgeon, period.
Can you answer my question?
I did. And that's just general medical care. It has nothing to do with the specialty of plastic surgery.
Now,
In fact, it has to do with the specialty of internal medicine.
Now, as of 2001, my understanding is that you have testified against 42 separate doctors. Does that sound right?
Over 40 years, probably.
Well, that was in 2001.
Well, okay, over 35 years, or 30 years, probably. As we said, a couple times a year since the mid-'70s, that's probably correct.
So as of now, what are Dr. Zulte and Dr. Vick, 80, 90?
No, I'd say 70, well, maybe 70, I don't know.
So 70, 80 times.
Over 45 years, yeah.
70 or 80 times you volunteered to point the finger at a doctor and say that that doctor was negligent and harmed their patient.
No, most of what I do, actually, in medical malpractice, I'd say at least half is cases where I've than on the defense side. So when you say I've pointed the finger at doctors, I'd say of those 70 or 80, it's probably 20 times. Okay?
Now, doctor, my understanding was that as of 2001, you testified against, not in support, not in favor of, against 42 doctors.
No, that's not correct.
All right.
If that's, where is that?
It's actually in front of the deposition.
Well, give me the page here.
All right. Page
I
9.
don't believe that's correct. If that is, I believe it'd be a typo when I actually have records of cases which I could provide to people. So where is that?
It's on page 9 of the deposition you have in front of you.
Page 9. And I've testified against doctors 40 times, is what you're saying. Okay, now show me where it says that. I see where it says several. Now you show me where it says
I'm going to walk you
40.
through it. You mind if I use your copy too?
Sure.
I don't know what I did. See on page 9, line 16.
Right.
Have you ever testified before that a doctor in any specialty of medicine was negligent or that their care fell below the standard of care? And what was your answer?
Yes, several.
And then the next question was, how many times? And you said, doctor, can you stay with me?
Okay, right.
And you said, several, right?
Right.
And he asked you for a ballpark.
Right. Well, I have records, and I don't believe that's accurate.
And what was the ballpark that you gave?
I don't know
Sitting
that I
there in
gave.
2001.
I can tell you if they transcribe that as 42, that's incorrect. That about 2/3 of the cases I review are for physicians. I've told you the number of cases. There's no way it would be 42. I actually have records of the cases with the name of the case and who it was for, defense or plaintiff, which I can provide you.
You're standing here, or sitting here in front of this jury, telling them that that answer was a typographical error by the court reporter?
Well, I don't know. Do you have my corrected copy here? Here, as a matter of fact, you have on the back here a list of cases. And it says defendant or plaintiff. You want to look at that?
That list of cases was from 2000 and 2001, right, doctor?
Yeah, I have a list before that.
And you know darn
There's
well,
no way that it's 42.
Doctor,
In those 2 years, it was 4 cases. I'm sorry. Sure. In 2 years, it was 4 cases.
Doctor, you know that the reason that list was attached to the deposition is because you were asked to bring in a list of testimony from the last couple years.
Yes. I also have a list going way back.
Okay. At the time, though, you testified that you had testified against 42 separate doctors. And your testimony here today is that must be an error in the transcript.
Well, do you see where I signed this copy is correct?
Is it your testimony that...
I think that's an error. I can provide you a list, and it isn't 42.
Okay.
I can provide you a list here that's 4 in 2 years.
Court reporter must put down the wrong number then.
I presumably so.
Now, today you testified that Dr. Vick breached the standard of care. You've also testified that he was grossly negligent.
Yes.
That hasn't always been your testimony in this case.
What do you mean?
Well, you've given sworn testimony in this case that said nothing about Dr. Vick. Do you remember giving an affidavit in 2008?
Whatever I was asked to provide. I don't recall. That's 8 years ago.
I think
If I was asked my opinions about him, I would have said my opinions about him. If I was asked opinions about Dr. Zolti, that's what I did.
All right. Would you like to see your affidavit?
Oh, no, it's got nothing to do with it. What do you mean?
I'd like you to confirm.
Did I say that Dr. Vick performed beautifully and there were no problems? I don't think I said that.
Well, I'd like to confirm that you gave sworn testimony in 2008 that Dr. Zolti breached the standard of care.
Correct.
And nowhere in that affidavit did you say anything about Dr. Vick.
I don't believe I was asked to.
You don't believe you were asked to give any?
I don't believe anybody asked me about his care.
So you only give opinions if your attorney asked you to?
No, I thought I was giving opinions in regards to Dr. Zolti. If you're asking my opinion about Dr. Vick, I'll tell you my opinion.
So your testimony is that the reason why there are no standard of care criticisms in 2008 against Dr. Vick is because you weren't asked to. Is that right?
I don't believe I was asked for my opinion about Dr. Vick. If I was, I would have told him what I'm telling you now.
Okay. Now, do you remember when Mr. Berth Law Firm called you in 2011 and asked you to provide all your opinions in the case?
Yes, and I think at that time they said, did I have opinions about Dr. Vick? And I said I did.
Okay. Well, the letter that I have in my hand says otherwise.
Well, what does
Is
it
there a copy
say?
of it?
Yeah, sure.
Kevin?
Okay.
Well, let him review it real quick. Now, before I discuss the letter with you, Dr. Goldman,
Okay.
we're just looking at the first page of the letter.
Okay. So what's the question?
I'm going to ask you a few questions about that letter first.
Okay.
So around May 2011, Mrs. Harper's attorneys called you, and they told you that they had to formally identify you as an expert in this case.
I don't know if they called me or sent me a letter or what.
Would you like me to refresh your recollection?
Sure. It's 5 years ago. I don't remember a phone call.
Do you have the deposition in this case in front of you?
I haven't, yeah. Back in 08, in 010 or whatever it is. Yeah. Were you saying if they called me in 2011? I don't recall. I have my deposition, by the way, here if you want to.
You need to have the court give you the official one.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Why don't you look at like page 79,
Okay.
lines 4 through 8, and I'll just
Okay.
let me know when you're ready.
Okay.
Okay. So you remember in around May of 2011, Mrs. Harper's attorneys called you and told you they needed to formally identify you as an expert.
I don't remember, but it says that, so I'm sure they did.
Would you have any reason to believe that's
No,
not
no,
the
I
case?
have no reason to doubt.
And you told them what your opinions were,
I believe so, yes.
and which defendant you'd offer opinions against.
Yes.
Okay? They asked you to identify all of your opinions in this case.
I don't recall.
Well, they asked you which defendants you had opinions against.
Yes, okay.
Okay? And after that discussion, they sent you a draft of the letter that would identify you as an expert.
Yes.
Okay? And as with any draft, you reviewed it, right?
Yes.
And you sent it back.
Correct.
And they might have sent you another version.
Perhaps.
And you only authorized them to send that once you approved of it, right?
Correct.
You wanted to make sure that that letter represented your true opinions in this case.
Correct.
And at the time that letter was sent, you had reviewed the medical records, right?
Yes.
And you had reviewed Dr. Vick's deposition.
Yes, I had.
Okay. And nowhere in that letter did you identify any standard of care criticisms against Dr. Vick.
Well, I don't know that I'm discussing standard of care criticisms of him. As we've said, I'm not a ear, nose, and throat physician. I don't necessarily express standard of care against him. I'm just telling in general medical, if you will, standard of care issues.
So you
know what I mean?
You don't have any standard of care criticisms against Dr. Vick?
Well, I'm not as a non-ENT physician. I'm not going to express standard of care opinions about his technique of doing this or that or whatever. Just general medical, if you will, standard of care for any physician. You know, communication, planning, things like that is standard of care of any physician. It's got nothing to do with any specialty or subspecialty. I'm not saying anything about his qualification to do a trach at the bedside or in an OR or anything like that.
No further questions, Your Honor.